My man, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the Winner's Paradigm podcast, brother. I know we're in the Unstoppable 365 motherfucker group, but I see you killing it all the time. I see your reels. I see you on lives with your wife, brother, and it's inspiring as fuck. Coming from seeing exactly, everything that you're doing. So I wanted to get you on here today, really help out other men and see, how we can transition those lives in business and life. So with further ado, brother, would you mind giving us a brief intro of who you are, what you're passionate about today, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on, brother. I really appreciate it. But mostly, so who I am, Alex Aguilar. So I've run the Revived Man, which is a group for men to rediscover confidence, masculinity, and leadership. And this really stemmed from myself. I was an Army Ranger for 6 years. I worked for the government as a contractor for a couple of years. Now I'm a fireman. So it really stemmed on the outside. I was doing all these awesome things. I had these big, badass, manly jobs. But on the inside, I wasn't showing up as a father, wasn't showing up as a husband, wasn't really leading in my life, kind of following, going with the flow instead of taking charge. And it took a strong wake-up call and a lot of rediscovery and establishing a lot of set protocols to take charge of my life, become that leader for my wife, the good father for my kids, and really reestablish who I am as a masculine man in a traditional sense. And going through all that, I really wanted to make sure that no other man had to be in that position. You know what I mean? So that if I can help them avoid the pitfalls of not leading, falling behind, then I can be, rewarded with helping other men out. And that's really where the Revived Man came into be. And really what I'm doing now, what I'm being called to do is help men fulfill their potential, become the leaders in their relationships, the leaders in their profession, the good husband, the good father, and really show up as a confident and masculine man.
Hell yeah, brother. And I love that, and thank you for your service as well, because I know exactly, how that is. Appreciate you, brother. And I just want to touch on that first. So for you, did you figure whenever you switched out of the service, and you're figuring out, hey, I'm going to go be a firefighter, was there some limiting beliefs within that time period? Was there some things that you didn't know that you needed to figure out before you jumped into that other career? And then you realized, man, I'm not that man that I desire to be.
So, yeah, it's like when I was in the, Ranger Battalion and deploying constantly and doing all these things, and I got out and all that really stops, you know what I mean? And I contracted for a little while too. And then, so I still had that sense of I'm going overseas. I'm still toting a rifle around. I'm still doing this badass shit. And then when that stops, you know what I mean? Like you hang up that rifle, you're done. That part of your life is over, but that mentality doesn't really go away. So there's like a pitfall there, there's a void, because even as being a fireman, it's a completely different type of service and a completely different mentality is there. You're almost on the defensive, like saving lives. Whereas in my previous jobs is you're going out on the offensive, hitting targets, doing all these. So being the raid guy, and you hang up your rifle, but you don't hang up that mentality. Like there is no quote unquote, that old quote of warriors aren't made to retire. You know what I mean? So there's a big pitfall there for guys who get out of the military, because they really lose that sense of purpose and that structure they've had for years that they really defined their whole personality on, and that's what I did, is I was really defining my personality on past laurels. So it's hard when you get out, is you don't have those to fall back on anymore. So it's kind of like, you're swimming, but you're not going anywhere. And you're really looking for that purpose and that fulfillment that you just don't have anymore.
Bro, I love the way that you said that. And that was exactly why I asked, as I've been going through my own shit as well. And it's funny because it's like, I notice certain things where it's the suck at the fuck up mentality, or I'm going to take your fucking pack and just keep moving. And it's like, it serves us in certain purposes, and then certain purposes it doesn't. And I love the way that you said that, especially when it comes to leadership, because that was something for me, was I had this mentality of everything's a game, everything's competitive, I'm better than everybody else. And then when I really looked at it, I was like, bro, this just stems from, childhood trauma and always pushing myself to be the best. And that's why I was good in the military. It's like, they gave you the structure. This is what you need to fucking do. And you're like, bro, this is fucking easy, because we're a grown ass fucking man. So the last thing we want is another man telling us what to do. So it was easy, with showing up every single day and doing those things. But when I looked at it, it's like, why are you so driven? Why don't you like anybody? Why don't you want to be in the same room with anybody? And it's like, because I know exactly what I'm called to do. And that was past tense, was coming with a different mindset. And then it went into discovering oh shit, I'm a lie. I got to help somebody and be like, hey man, I've been there before. I've done these things. everything that you're experiencing is natural and it's okay to feel that way. So I love the way that you said that, brother. And it just shows how much work you put into yourself. So let's talk there first. What's it like for you now that you've put all this resources, knowledge into yourself, and you're working on being the best that you can be before you even touch, and start being there for the wife, being there for the kids? What does it look like for you showing up for yourself at the beginning of the day?
So for me, I tell guys, and for me, showing up as my best self means that I have to be a little selfish. You know what I mean? I have to put energy and effort into myself first, because if I'm not, putting energy and effort into myself, I'm just not going to be valuable to the people I care about, because I'm going to give them half-ass effort, and I'm going to give them basically not be able to fulfill what I promised I was going to do. So I really come down to, I'm okay. I had to learn that it's okay to be selfish with taking care of yourself. You know what I mean? Whatever. And that's going to the gym, having a routine, taking care of your body, journaling, really, really diving into a self-fulfillment. Because if I can really take care of myself, then I start feeling good about who I am. And then that starts bleeding out into being a husband, being a father, being a fireman, helping people out at work. But that big discovery for me is I have to put myself first. And I know a lot of people say, you want to put other people before you, and that's the way to do it. But you will never really show up and help the people that need you if you don't put yourself first. You know what I mean? And that's really what it comes down to is I had to learn that be selfish by taking care of yourself. And it's really going to affect your relationships in a positive way and your interactions in a positive way. But it's getting rid of that mindset of being selfish is bad. I mean, I'm sure, being selfish is bad if you're neglecting other people. But when you're selfish for the purpose of showing up as your best self, it is the most positive thing you can do for your relationships.
Yeah, brother. I love the way that you said that. And that was something Sean Michael Crane taught me. And that's why I love that dude, as he was telling me, like, hey, man, you're doing it, but you need to show up consistently for yourself. And it was one of those things for me where I was like, man, I'm in the gym every day, Sean. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, but you need to get jacked. You need to get to here and get better. He's like, I don't need to fucking worry about you. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? That's 100% right. And now it's funny for me because I stopped drinking, this week, and it's going to be a year officially that I haven't been drinking. And really the last 2 years I wasn't drinking too much, right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny now because it's just thinking about those things, how we show up and how we be present. For instance, I was at a birthday party and my brother-in-law didn't want to go on a water slide that his son was asking him for. So I looked at him and I was like, hey, man, empty your fucking pockets. And he looked at me and he's like, what? And I was about to pick this dude up and go throw him on the water slide. Yeah. And he's shorter than me. He's like 5'2". So it was funny as shit as everybody was looking at me like, what the fuck what are you thinking? And I just looked at him and I was like, hey, man, like, you're drinking, you have a beer and so forth. I was like, bro, your kid's turning 10. Like, he gets a fucking water slide. He's going to remember this shit. Get your ass on the water slide. Have fun with him. We ended up getting all the guys. Everybody had a great time, and it was just one of those things for me being sober and realizing that, hey, I need to show up as the best version of myself. And it was funny because we did a one-day trip to Fresno. We went to go see family, and then we drove back that night. And I woke up at 3 that morning to go to the gym. So it was like being up for almost 24 hours. And it was just having that new sense of gratitude, because for me, I used to be checked out. I used to be drunk. I used to be high, like whatever it is, just to escape my reality. And it was powerful within that moment, being like, man, this is why I get up at 3. This is why I do so much work on myself. This is why I realize this shit, because I had parents that were drinking or in their 40s still partying. And it's just like, hey, man, that's cool and all that you want to enjoy yourself. But like, how does that make your kids feel? How does that make you feel not being that best version of yourself, not showing up as that? And for me, it was getting sober, looking at it from that lens. But 2, being a parent and realizing from the parent lens is like, man, I'm showing my kids exactly what I don't want them to be. Right. And for me, it was exactly that. So I love the way that you bring that point, brother, because that's something people don't think about until either they're too late within it or they're not showing up for their families.
No, 100%, and I tell guys, the way I view is like my personal, when I go to the gym, I'm going early in the morning, is I don't want my self-development doesn't get to rob my kids of their time with me. You know what I mean? I don't get to tell them, hey, I want to hang out, but I can't because I'm going to go to the gym and go, I'll do this. I need to take care of that before I take away time from them, because then that's not fair to them. That's no longer, that's the negative selfish right there. You know what I mean? I want to be selfish, but make sure that it doesn't rob anything else from my family at all, time with them, So my schedule, if I can't hit the gym in the morning, I'm going to work with my wife and figure out when I have some free time to go to the gym without taking away from my responsibilities as a husband and a dad, you know? And that's a big thing, is our self-development. Being selfish only works from a positive sense when it's not robbing our relationships of time and energy and resources.
Ooh, I love that. And that's something that I recently had to do as well, is work with my wife. Because like I said, she had the brain surgery and it was all these things, and I was running to San Diego every day. And it's like, man, I can get fixated on the controllables and saying that I'm not able to do what I need to do. And then really what it came down to was like, all right, at this time period, 3:30 is not going to work. I was going to the gym at 10:30, 11:30 at night because I was like, hey, told her, hey, we can get some cuddles in. I'm going to go hit this gym because this is what I need to do to show up as my best version of myself. And it was something where it was like my energy was off. So she noticed it. It was like, yeah, go to the gym. And I love the way that you said that, it's like we have to work with our spouses, where a lot of times, and this is something I learned in the military, was like, oh, my wife's there, but I'm not really here. You know what I mean? So I love the way that you say communicating there. And that's something you guys do with your lives and doing it together. So what's the process been like for your relationship, man, with just, first of all, you guys being on the same playing field, and then two, being able to go on lives and speak about the things that you guys have been working through?
So we were in a very bad spot for a long time with our communication, especially when I was deploying. And I'd be home, but I wasn't home. You know what I mean? Wasn't showing up the way I was supposed to. And it took a lot of work for us to really get to where we are at now. That it is, what I say is just radical honesty. You have to be so radically honest with your spouse that you're almost unafraid. I know you never want to hurt your spouse's feelings and make them feel bad, but the worst thing you can do is shield them from the honest truth, because then you guys are not going to be able to move forward or get to that open communication place, So radical honesty is really what it took for me and my wife to get to where we are now, that we can be so open, communicate actually what's going on, not sugarcoating it to spare each other's feelings. I would rather my wife tell me the truth. It hurt me in the moment, but help us in the long run. You know what I mean? It's that long, big picture. When you're married to someone in a relationship, it's not for the day to day. You're in it for the long haul. You have to take that into consideration, that you might need to hurt your spouse's feelings for 24 hours to get closer to them for the next 24 years. It's just, it is what it is. Like, I had a really hard time with pornography for a long time. That was one of my biggest vices. You know what I mean? And I never thought, my wife always complained about it, but I'm like, she doesn't know what she's talking about because it doesn't affect our relationship, this and that and the other. And it was really like eye-opening to see, once you put a vice aside, for me, pornography, how much better my relationship with my wife got. And then I really noticed that, wow, this really was affecting my relationship. I might have thought of it as this innocent whatever, but when this person who you're sharing your life with, expresses to you how this makes them feel, how it is negatively affecting them, you need to take that into consideration and really view from that outside perspective of, what is this vice that I'm getting a personal satisfaction out of? How is this negatively affecting my actual relationship in real time? You know what I mean? How is it affecting my physical relationship with my wife, my emotional connection? And I said, you know what, I'm going to get rid of this vice. I need help with it. I had to, go through a long process to get rid of that. And my connection with my wife has been immensely better. My relationship, our physical relationship, our communication, and all that, because then you really delve down to, as far as men struggling with pornography, I know I'm going a little off track here. You really delve down to your wife being the number one source of your, physical state, your intimate relationships. She's your only source of sexual satisfaction, as it was meant to be, and that's when you really delve into this. Sexual relationship is not just a physical relationship. There's such a strong emotional power behind it. And that's really when you discover, like, this is really the intention of that physical relationship in a marriage, is a true connectedness that you're not going to get when you're getting that satisfaction from other sources. You know what I mean? So it took us a long time, but it really comes down to that. Radical honesty is the number one thing. Don't be afraid to hurt your spouse's feelings for 24 hours if it's going to make your relationship better for 24 years.
Bro, I love that. And we're going to touch on that on the second part. But I deeply resonate with that, because that's something I'm realizing as well. It's like, the more honest we be, and that's something I struggled with as well, is like just telling my wife this, hey, it's that, my sex drive's high. And then for me, it was the injuries and then gaining weight. And then going through it and I'm like, man, why is my testosterone low? Like, is something wrong with me? And going through all these fucking things. And then, stop watching porn. And then one day she was like, hey, let's do it together, And I was like, okay. And then I was giving myself reasons to do the same dumb shit. And I look at it and I'm like, bro, I'm not being myself. And two, I'm reverting back to this way, whenever I do get flustered, I get anxiety, whatever it is, So for me, it was, doing hella push-ups and burpees and really making myself suffer throughout the day to be able to realize that, hey, I'm feeling this emotion, whatever it is. And that's why I talk about it, when somebody's like, hey, I'm trying to stop smoking, whatever it is. I'm like, bro, just start fucking doing burpees every single time you go outside.
Right.
Every time, whatever,
painful every time you have that urge, and it'll take your mind off that craving,
Exactly. And that was something I learned from one of my therapist friends. She was telling me that, hey, anytime you get rid of something, either get rid of it for good, you replace it with something good, or, it's something that's just going to fade out. And I was like, man, that's right. We need to figure out what we're going to do. So I love the way that you say that, because that's something I'm learning as well. It's like connecting with our wives is a different thing. And I know for a lot of us, we weren't taught these skills. We weren't taught all these things that are going to help us become better as men. It's something we develop on the way. And that's why when you look at it, you're like, man, my mindset was so fucked up at the beginning of the marriage. And then now I'm at a completely different headspace. I'm thinking rationally, I'm not in that hurt boy mode anymore where I'm getting mad and I'm, starting shit and just really blowing up things and saying things that I don't mean. So for you, brother, what was it like pushing the pride aside and then realizing, like you said, you're going to have to hurt your wife's feelings, but also understanding that, hey, she's going to tell you some shit that you're not going to like, and that there's growth that you need to do in order for you guys to improve.
So a big thing for me, pushing my ego aside, was really learning that if my wife is telling me something, she's not telling me something to, bitch me out, make me feel like shit, this and that. If your wife is telling you something that you're doing that is not up to par, it sucks, they're telling you that because they want to see you become a better person. You know what I mean? They care about you. They love you. They're your wife. They want the best version of you. You know what I mean? So when they're telling you you're falling short on something or you're doing bad on whatever, a lot of guys, our pride and our ego as men is we're like, no, so I know what I'm doing. I'm a man. I know this, blah, blah, blah. But if you put that aside, you'll really realize they're not coming most of the time at all from a nagging perspective. It's I love you and I want you to be the best version of you. This is not showing up as that person. You know what I mean? And that's a big thing for me is I really just had to put that ego and that pride aside as who I was and look in and be like, is she right? You know what I mean? Am I not showing up the right way? Am I falling short on these things? And when the answer, if you can honestly internally look as yes, then that's your wife helping you. That's your wife coming from a loving place, telling you that you need to improve on these things. And that does, that can even go outside of your relationship. That could be at your job. You know what I mean? Is my superior officer, whatever it is, telling me I'm falling short because he's an asshole? Or is he telling me I'm falling short because he knows I have potential and he wants me to be successful? You know what I mean? And when you take your ego and pride out of being told where you're fucking up, you start to realize, holy shit, maybe I am fucking up and I do have work to do. And then that actually allows you to become better. You know what I mean? And those people are doing it. When you care about someone, that just goes back to that radical honesty. When you care about someone, you're honest with them because you want them to be the best version of themselves.
Absolutely, brother. And I love the way that you say that and what it conditionally, what this episode's coming to is like, anytime that you need any change in life, it starts with you. And I think that's something we don't think about as men is like, we're so used to leading and helping other people and fixing the problem versus coming in here and then just letting it die down. And that was one thing for me is like, anytime my wife would come to me, I wouldn't really listen. I would just be like, hey, I'm giving you a fucking solution. You're coming to me for an answer. I'm giving you a fucking answer. And then she looks at me and I'm like, and then she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, hey, fucking people come to me. I give them fucking answers. I move the fuck on and I go about my day. And she's just looking at me. She's like, you're not listening. And I'm like, no, I'm listening to you. And it was something to where it was like every single time I was just trying to solve the issue versus letting her deal with it herself and just vent to me. For me, it was like, hey, quit fucking talking about this because you're driving me insane. Talking about the same things exactly. Where I'm like, it's easily, every time it was core values or something. And then she's figuring it out. So I love the way that you mentioned that. That's something
we got to remember that, like us as men, we have logical brains, so we want to be useful. We want answers and this and that. And a woman has a very emotional brain, and that's the way it was perfectly designed. You know what I mean? To have that yin and yang. That's why women are so good at raising our children, being that nurturing presence. Whereas in men, we're analytical. We want answers. You know what I mean? Where women, they want that emotional and they want just that presence. You know what I mean? Sometimes they don't want an answer. They just want you to be available. And that's a big thing too. As men and husbands, we forget we don't have to give an answer every time. Sometimes we just need to be available. You know what I mean? And that's it. We just need to be present and available. We don't need a logical answer, XYZ. Just be present, listen, be attentive. And that's all. You know what I mean? Show your wife that you're present in the moment. You hear her voice. You understand what she is saying, and you're there for her when she needs you. Then that way, sometimes she might say, what do you think? And then you can give an answer. You know what I mean? But sometimes you just got to be there. But, it's hard for us to rewire our brains that way because, as men, we want answers. I want to know why this square peg won't fit in that round hole. I need to find a way. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Hell yeah, brother. And I love that about you, and exactly what you're talking about. And all your videos are fucking motivational. And I'm like, man, just makes me go harder, seeing your stuff because I'm like, bro, you're really passionate about what you do. And that just serves, with who you are as a human being, brother. So I really appreciate you. What is your Facebook group like, man? What's it been like for you as a leader is going through helping men and really, discovering that you once struggled at the same things you're teaching now?
Right. So I started Facebook group. It's just the Revive Man Facebook group. Generally on Mondays, I drop a video in there about masculinity, developed 8 pillars of masculinity that I live my life by. And those are the ones that I've had to cultivate that now I teach men those 8 pillars and how to, implement those in your daily life. But the big point of the Facebook group is just an open space to share about masculinity, about problems as a man, how to develop that strong confidence, that big presence, that you walk into a room, people gravitate towards you because you're exuding that positive energy. And I do the same thing. My videos, like you're talking about, my Instagram, my message, I don't want to share any messages that I don't actively believe in or partake in daily. I want to make sure that people know, like, I really do believe this is the way a man should be living his life from this perspective in this frame, because it's going to foster happiness in his relationships, positivity in his energy. You're really going to start cultivating that who you really are, that positive masculine man that people gravitate to, that people will want to ask you for advice, for questions, for answers, all that stuff, because you have to be living it on a day in and day out basis for it to really hold its weight. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big, important property of me trying to live, share this message, is that it even forces me more to make sure I'm living it on a day in and day out basis, because I don't want to tell a man to do something I'm unwilling to do myself.
Yeah, brother. I love the way that you said that. And that's something that resonates with me deeply is, with my podcast, and I'm talking about the Recalibrated Man, my Facebook group. It all goes back to that, as I always think about that moment of being on my knees, begging God that things need to change, and then realizing that the power came with me changing and me realizing that, hey, maybe I don't got shit figured out. Maybe I do have ego issues. Maybe I do have to work through some shit that I didn't think I had to in order to be better. And then 2, it's awesome. Like, like I talked about, having the anger and feeling all these things in my body and be like, these motherfuckers suck. But 2, not getting upset anymore, just being like, hey man, I'm human too. We once were at that position, and we once, told our mentors to fuck off, that we had everything figured out. And then when we get there and we have those clients, we have those guys that we're working with, and realize that, man, they're just the same as us. They're just blind because they haven't had that calling. They haven't had that wake up call to get them to realize that, oh shit, I need to change. So I love the way that you say that, because that's something that we don't think about until we're in the midst of it. And then you're thinking about this shit and you're like, bro, why did I not see this, years before, and I wasted all this fucking time?
Right, exactly. And I call it reference a lot. The dichotomy of control is, I have my 5-meter radius. I can control everything in there. Outside of that, if I can't control it, I have to learn not to let it upset me, not to let it affect my mood. I have no control over it. Why am I letting things I don't have any control over affect the way I live my life? The minute it crosses into the dichotomy of my control, now I can do something about it and change the projection of it. You know what I mean? But when it's outside of there, a lot of there's nothing I can do about it. Why worry and stress and become angry at things that I can't affect? You know what I mean? I put 100% of my energy into the things I can affect, the things I can change. If it's outside of that, I'm not going to let those influence my decision or influence my attitude, because I can't control those. I can't affect that. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of men's problems is we want to change everything in this big giant circle. And that's why we get upset. And why isn't this going this way and that? If you can't control it, you have to let it go. The universe will bring it into your circle at some point. when it's ready for you to change it. You know what I mean? You just have to be ready, willing, and open to change it when the opportunity comes. But until then, focus on what you can control, and that's it.
I love the way that you say that, because that's something that I'm big on. And you mentioned it, talking about your circle, and you're around a lot of high level individuals. So it just rubs off on you. And we'll touch on that the second part. But my point here is that was me, was controlling everything around me, and then realizing that like I was the one pointing everything out, being like, oh, this motherfucker sucks. This motherfucker isn't it. And just really checking out of conversations, because I felt like that there was a power scale. And I felt like that you had to be a certain place in order to just tell me anything, what I was thinking, versus just being that light and then just absorbing the knowledge and then seeing, hey, does this fit what we're doing? Does it not fit? And so forth. And then going outward and helping. But really what that taught me, and this is where Sean came in, was I was talking about group coaching. And I was like, one thing I've never fucking liked is group coaching, because I just don't want to be in a fucking group with somebody who's just talking to get themselves to feel good so they can start their journey. And then he was like, hey man, you were in that same position. You once looked for someone else's attention to help you out. And so you can build up yourself, and then you can get there. And I'm like, you know what, you're fucking right. So it was something for me that I had to learn in order to teach it to other people, was like, hey, we're all human. We're all working on that same thing. And everyone that we have around us is going to influence us in that way. So for you, brother, what's it like being around some powerful people and just seeing how motivated and dedicated they are, which makes you better off?
Dude, it is that old phrase of, if you are the wealthiest person in your circle, you need a new circle. You know what I mean? So when I go to these events and surround myself with these high level individuals who are living their dreams, motivated, are very purpose driven, it does bleed out into that circle. You start collecting their ideas, how they did stuff, why they're doing stuff a certain way. You really become like fired up with that motivation from they say motivation is from external factors. Well, when you're in a circle of high individuals, high value men, high value people, they're motivating. They are the external factor. You know what I mean? You are like, hey, I like the way that guy's doing it. I want to have that. How did he get there? What did he do? And you really do start leveling up the way you do things, because you start operating from a sense of, how would I act if I already was at this level? If I'm at this level, right now, if I'm here and I act like I'm here, I'm never going to move. But if I'm here and I live my life and my mindset like I'm here, I'm going to start moving up and up and up and up. And I'm going to start forcing the universe to create that reality, and you have to hang around those people who are doing what you want to do, who are living the life that you want to live, because it's going to force you to, put those habits into your life. And that's really what you learn from these high income, high earning, high level individuals, is they have a routine set of habits that have led them to be successful. So you implement those habits in your life and you start leveling up. And I think it's very important as men to look around at your circle, you know what I mean? And make sure that you are in a circle, in a tribe, whatever you want to call it, of men who are always aiming bigger. The whole old adage of, how big would you dream if there was no limit? You know what I mean? If you knew you couldn't fail, how big would you dream? You know what I mean? We prevent ourselves from dreaming of our dream life because we think it's too much work. I'll never have that. But then you surround yourselves with people who are doing it and you're like, holy shit, this is possible. I can fucking do this. You know what I mean? And it's really influential to be around high level individuals. Like when I go to the event with Sean Michael Crane, Ryan Stream, Ryan Carroll's fucking doing amazing. And then you meet people like Tim Grover, Marcus Luttrell, Hunter Cloudis, Rob Bailey, all these guys that, that are really doing it. And it is motivating. And it is now, I want to be a consistent member in that circle, you know what I mean? Consistently leveling up my life. And I think it's important that every man take a look around his circle. Am I surrounded by, am I the wealthiest man in my circle? Am I surrounded by people who are okay where they are? Or am I surrounded by people who are continuously striving for self-improvement? And you need to make a hard decision sometimes that you might need to cut people out of your circle. And that's okay. If people aren't ready to grow with you yet, that's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? You need to be okay with that. And you need to be okay with cutting out people from your circle who are just going to stay where they're at for the rest of their life. And you need to be okay with that as a man, as a person. If you want a certain lifestyle, you want a certain mindset, you want to be living your dream life, you need to surround yourself with people who are doing it. And if they aren't serving that purpose, be okay with cutting them out of your circle for a while. They might come back, but for right now, you need to be with people who are growing. you know, and it's pretty awesome being around those people. Like anytime you get to interact with those guys, you feel their energy, you know what I mean? And it is vibrant and you feed off of it. You can really feel someone's energy when they're living like really from an aligned, you know, purpose with their values. They exude an energy and you can feel it. It's real, man.
Hell yeah, brother. And I know exactly. I myself, you know, been going to events and interviewing people. And that's one thing that I do, you know, it's like just feed off their energy or just listen and hear that one thing where I'm like, man, you know, this can help me on my journey. And, you know, that's something that we don't think about is like just the people we have around us. And I'm one of those who just keeps minusing people out of my group. And that was something my therapist said. You know, my wife's like, oh, I need a therapist. I start going to a therapist. And then he's like, you're so hard on yourself. What is it like against the world? And I'm like, oh, no, it's not like that. You know, it's like my group of people. It's like, oh, if you're one of those fucking people, I can count on you. You show up, you're that motherfucker. So I don't have to worry about you. And he's like, oh, so you don't hold your friends to higher expectations. I'm like, no, they just live that shit. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, they just live that shit. And I'm just like, hey, man, I need something. They fucking help me out. I help them out. And that's it. You know, I'm like, we don't sit here. We don't fucking justify anything. We don't say that you can achieve something. We're like, all right, you want to fucking achieve it. It's going to take work, whatever. You know, we're the last people you're going to say it's like, oh, you're going to fail. Fuck it, dude. You fail, you know? So it was something for me, just figuring it out, you know, on the energy side where I'm a high energy guy as well, you know, and feed off everybody's energy. And I'm like, bro, like even now, you know, talking to some men, it's like, this is where my ego comes in. And I'm just like, bro, I can't fucking stand sitting here and hearing it. And, oh, I'm fucking tired or whatever. And I'm like, bro, you know that, like, I have all these injuries from the Marine Corps. I fucking throw up every single morning because of my joints and whatever. You know, you still get the workouts in. You still figure out how to get the food down, even though, you know, you can't hold it down. It's like, stop making fucking excuses, you know? So for me,
100%, that excuse victim mentality has really taken over our society, our modern men today. And there's a huge gap in what men used to be and what they are today. And, you know, they've done all those studies that have proven that men today in their 20s have the testosterone level of men who were in their 70s 50 years ago. Yep. So that's how fast we're declining on these things. And it's because we complain. Like, for example, you know, my shoulder, I had a surgery on it in January. It's worse than it was before I even had that. It's getting worse. So I can't do all the workouts I want to do. I can't do all these things I want to do, but I might be mad about it, but I'm just working around it. Okay, what can I do? You know, what can I do to keep my body in shape? Well, I can't do this. Well, I can do this. Hey, I can only lift 20-pound dumbbells. Well, I'm going to do 150 fucking reps then. And then make sure I'm getting that taxing, you know, on my central nervous system, on my muscle fibers, figuring out a way to still work on my body around an injury. I might be mad about it. Of course, who wouldn't be? I can't do what I want to do, but I'm still going to show up and find a way to get something done. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, one little setback, and that's it. It's ruined. I can't do anything. I'm just going to sit on the fucking couch now, eat Fritos for the rest of my life. And then I'm going to refer back to that moment of, well, I would have done that if it weren't for this, you know what I mean? And complain about it. But that shit happens to everyone, whether it's a physical injury, a mental setback, you know, some sort of loss. You can recover as a man. You need to get off that fucking couch, you know, that metaphorical couch, and keep pushing forward and find out what you can do. And it's that whole victim mentality is really taken down modern men. And it's a shame. You know what I mean? It's a real big shame to see, especially when you see a man and you see what they could have been. That's the biggest letdown is you see who they are and what they really could have been. And it's a total shame. You know, like I don't want to look back on my life and say, wow, I could have been this. And that's horrible. That's, you know, I never want to look at my life and think what I could have been. You know what I mean? I want to look at my life and say, fuck, I shot for the fucking moon and ended up in the stars, dude. You know what I mean? And that's just how a man needs to be living his life. You don't want to see what you could have been. You know, they talk about a man's, you know, if you really want to show a man a failure, is show him what he could have been.
Yep.
So that really resonates with me, just as you were talking about, is you may hurt, things are going to hurt, things are going to go wrong. You still have to put in the work. You still have to show up and find a way. You know what I mean? And that's the only way, is just forward. Put your head down and keep moving forward.
Bro, I love the way that you fucking said that, and props to you on the shoulder. I fucked up shoulders where I got to get surgery, bro. I've dislocated both of them 4 times, and I just fucking strained mine the other day. And what's funny is you're talking about the injuries, right? So for me, I didn't squat for 5 years because I tore all the cartilage in my right knee. My knee's fucked up and going through all these things, you know. So listening to the doctor saying you're never going to squat again, you're never going to do what again. I don't give a fuck about running, so we're cool about that. But for me, it was just the working out. You know, it's like, man, like I really catered around and I used machines, and Matt Fleming got me on a good protocol, and then from there, sort of looking at my diet and looking at, you know, the things that were making more anti-inflammatories and why, you know, I was so fucked up, right? So started squatting after 5 years, hurt my shoulder, and then it's slowly been able to do good. So even today, like 225 on incline, I felt my shoulder a little bit, so I'm stretching it out. And I was like, man, you know, it's continually taking care of my body, but also knowing exactly what we can do and then pushing it and some. You know, a lot of times we don't do those fucking things. So I love the way that you said that, brother. And it's been an amazing fucking episode today. So I'll leave it with the last question here, brother. What would you say to the previous version of ourselves? We don't know where we are. We're just trying to align ourselves to our definition of success.
My previous version of myself, I would literally tell them, it's funny. The whole reason I created the Revived Man is because I am helping my 25-year-old self. You know what I mean? Is I would say, do not rest on external laurels. You need to sit down, reestablish a moral compass, and live in alignment with those values. Every single decision you make, if you just ask yourself, is this going to get me closer to where I want to be? If the answer is yes, then you go for it. If the answer is no, then you already know not to do it. That's literally what I would leave it with, is ask yourself when you make a decision, is this going to get me where I want to be? And is this in alignment with my values? If you have to sacrifice ethics to get there, then it's not the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Are you in alignment with your values? And is this decision going to get me where I want to be? I would tell all young men, ask yourselves that. Picture your dream life and now start living your life in alignment with that man. Every man is already exactly who he wants to be. He just has to live it day in and day out.
Amen, brother. And where can people find you, my man, if they want to keep up with you, they want to hear more of your story?
So I have on Facebook, it's the Revived Man is my Facebook group. And on Instagram, my Instagram is Alex Aguilar _TRM. Public profiles, you find free to join the Facebook group, free knowledge being put out constantly. And then hit me up on Instagram. You know what I mean? DM me, reach out, and I'm more than willing to answer any questions on Facebook or Instagram that anyone ever has.
Hell yeah, brother. We have this streaming on all platforms, but we'll definitely have all that in the show notes. Circle back to you. I definitely would love to have you on a second time in the future, brother. Because I know
awesome, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me on. I love what you're doing, man. Love the message. And, you know, this is just another one of those examples of you find people that resonate with the message and just different ways to spread it. Make sure that if we can affect more, you know, the more men we can get eyes on and ears to, the better, you know, more men we can help. And that's what the name of the game is, you know, changing the world, helping men one man at a time.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, thank you again, my friend. It was an honor.
Thanks, Al. Really appreciate your time, brother.
Thank you.